When I experience an obstacle or challenge, I'm going to move past it. I'm going to shatter that glass ceiling and I'm going to keep going.
It hurts to smash a glass ceiling.
Wow, we literally have to be superheroes to walk through this life.
While I might have been the first, I pray that I'm not the last.
Welcome to Taking Her Lead. Janine, here we are.
Yay, here we are. Number 2. I'm so excited. It's gonna be really fun. We have a great one today.
Here we strive to give women a platform to tell their stories and explain how they lead. These conversations, as always, as they have for a year, and we're very excited for today as well, give us unique insights into the impact women in leadership can make in transforming the way we work and live. And today, in particular, it's about how we live. And so we have the unique privilege of chatting with Stephanie Stuckey. Janine, you want to talk about how we got Stephanie onto the show?
Yes, I said my pleasure. So I've been following Stephanie and her story on LinkedIn, and every day she posts something really interesting. I wake up in the morning and go, wonder what Stephanie is going to say today.
Yes.
And so I reached out to her because I, as a little girl, used to ride from Ohio to Alabama to visit family. I was one of 3 kids in the back of a Renault with the windows down, hot air blowing, dad smoking in the front seat, and we would stop at Stuckey's. It was the highlight of the trip. We would get a pecan log, so I brought one.
Yay,
just to
there it is.
Everybody, and we would cut it up in 5 pieces, and we each got our little piece and we would savor it. And so, of course, when I saw what Stephanie was doing, I was like, oh my gosh, we got to let the world know what she's doing. So she is here today, and we're so excited to have her. So let's bring Stephanie on.
Here we go. And there's Stephanie.
Hey. Yay. So we are so excited to have you. So a lot of our guests might not, or a lot of our listeners might not know what it is that you do and what your current role is. So I was hoping that you'd give us a little bit of a rundown of your most recent transition in the last 2 years.
And a big one. Yeah.
Thank you. And I really appreciate the opportunity to share with you some of my story and to get hopefully some feedback from the listeners. So what I do is I run my family's business, Stuckey Corporation. We were founded in 1937 by my grandfather as a roadside pecan stand in Eastman, Georgia. Fell out of family hands for decades, starting in 1965. And a year ago, I had the opportunity to buy the company and completely had a career pivot post age 50.
Yeah.
And I'm a lawyer by training, an environmental attorney, and had been running sustainability for the city of Atlanta, and decided that this was my moment. This was my opportunity to really bring back the amazing company that my grandfather had built and was so special to lots of us. And just like you, Janine, I remember taking those family road trips. We had a Woody station wagon instead of a Renault. And I used to drive, my grandmother was a chain smoker. And I remember just diving in the floorboard of the car and breathing to try to get some fresh air, because she would roll all the windows up and crank up the air conditioning. And then we'd have that. I mean, it's amazing that our generation made it to adulthood because we had no car seats.
I know.
People smoked. They smoked while they were pregnant. They drank while they were pregnant. Like, I mean, it's just, I God knows what I ate. I mean, Tang and Kool-Aid and
all the good stuff.
Wonder Bread.
All the good stuff.
All the good stuff. I'm Trix cereal. Like, I ate every sugar-coated thing known.
Exactly it.
Yeah, so that's part of what I'm doing is I'm bringing back like that great stuff that we remember. And so many of those fun companies that were around in the 70s, they're gone, or if they're still around, let's face it, they're owned by some big corporation that owns like 200 different brands, and they lost a lot of what made them special.
The essence.
Right.
So Stephanie, how did this, talk about the journey just over the past year and a half of going from what you were doing to now something very different. How did that happen? How did that happen?
So you asked my roles and I didn't answer that.
That's
so
okay.
I am
We'll bring you back.
CEO, I'm chief marketing officer, and I'm in charge of sales. And occasionally I will even clean up at the factory. So no job is too small or too big. If you are running a small company, you can relate to that. You just have to be willing to roll up your sleeves and get her done. And how that transition happened was I was initially approached by my dad's former business partners who owned 49% of Stuckey's if I wanted to buy their shares. It was strictly transactional. It was an investment.
Yeah.
And I looked at the books, and frankly, Stuckey's had been losing money for 5 years, since
Wow.
2016. So almost 5 years. And I realized there was no CEO, there was no marketing budget, there was no strategic plan. The company was really faltering. And so if I was going to put what turned out, it's my life savings into this, I wanted to make sure it was being run properly, and there wasn't a CEO. So it might as well be me.
Yep.
And at the time, somebody said to me, how can you be CEO of a company? You've never even run a lemonade stand. And I called that person after I'd been running the company for 6 months, and we started turning a modest profit. And I said, maybe I can't run a lemonade stand, but I can run Stuckey's.
Right.
Because nobody loves this brand, with the exception of maybe my father and my aunt, as much as I do. Like, I am so passionate about this, and people don't buy from people. I mean, people don't buy from companies; they buy from people. Sorry,
right? Yeah,
they want a connection.
Yeah,
they want. I mean, why do you buy certain brands? I mean, there's a connection there, and you feel like. I love Nikes because I love Phil Knight's story, and I highly recommend Shoe Dog. I'm reading his biography right now. He's got an amazing story.
Yeah.
And so I buy from him because I like and I like his brand. I like how they advertise. I like their messaging. I like the vibe. So I can do that. I knew I could do that. And so I bought 49%, and then in 6 months once I started turning a profit, my father had confidence enough that he sold me his shares. And so then I owned the company outright.
Yay.
Yeah. And that was really my life savings at that point.
That's a big deal.
I was scraping to get the funding together, but I made it happen. And then I got a business partner shortly thereafter, because I realized you can't do it alone.
Yeah.
And so I have a president who is a pecan farmer by trade, and his name is R.G. Lamar, and we jointly own the company. And then we just bought a manufacturing plant, and we can get into that. But we are really turning this company around, and it's exciting.
Wow.
Yes, I'm so excited for you. Well, there's two things I want to say. Is number one, I think for our listeners, you're the perfect example of that every person has to brand themselves. When they're in a position of influence, they have to know what they stand for, bring their values to the table, and really be able to just say to people, what is my story? What am I passionate about? Who am I? And I think you've done a marvelous job at that. So there is one other thing that, we always ask people what were their early childhood experiences, but I have to ask you about the one that's in the media, because when I read about what you said to President Nixon,
oh my gosh,
this is a little girl.
I can't believe you dredged that up. You have to do like 3 pages of Google searches to find the story.
Well, that's how fascinated I am about you. I really think that you as a little girl knew your power. When you told President Nixon you didn't vote for him, you were pretty much saying, I didn't exercise my influence and power to vote for you.
Yeah. True story.
You didn't vote yet, but you understood it. So I really want to hear about your early childhood experiences around leadership, around your identity. How did that form you?
Yeah.
I grew up in a very political environment. My grandfather, the founder of Stuckey's, was actually a state representative for several terms. And then my father was in the U.S. Congress. So when I was a year old, my dad moved the entire family to D.C. And I joke it was kind of like country mouse, city mouse, because every summer we would go back down to his district, and he was always campaigning for reelection, because every other year he's up for reelection. So my whole childhood was being in a supercharged political environment, and I would go to the Capitol with my father. So that was very formative for me. I was the one kid. He had 5 kids. He has 5 kids. I'm number 4, by the way. So I wasn't like the heir apparent to do anything. And he would take me with me because I would go and my mom was happy to have some childcare relief. And so from a very early age, I would sit there in the Capitol chambers and listen to debates. And he used to let me vote for him. He would let me press the green and the yellow button, the green and the red, not yellow. And I remember one time I pressed the wrong button and he came running over. He's like, press the right button. So I had this sense of politics was just something very natural. And so once a year, congressmen, and at the time it was almost all congressmen, this was in the 70s, they had a Christmas party and kids came. It was a family event. And so I remember going up to President Nixon and telling him that I didn't vote for him. And but we had this whole conversation, and I remember saying, how did you get elected? And he went through this very detailed response on how you start off small and you work your way up in politics. And it's true of anything in life. And I still remember him saying that. And that was good advice, actually. And then I said, well, I have to tell you, I didn't vote for you. And he said, well, you couldn't vote for me, sweetheart. And I said, yeah, I know. But if I was old enough, I wouldn't have voted for you. And there's a photograph of that moment. And you can see my mother standing right behind me, and she's far enough away where she couldn't necessarily be affiliated with me. And she's got this look on her face like, oh my God. Oh my God. And I clearly picked it. My dad's a Democrat. And so I picked it up. You know, I had a sense of like, this is my politics and you're not my politics.
You had a sense.
So,
that was fascinating. I couldn't wait to ask you about that, you know.
So I would just say, if you've got kids, encourage them to speak out and know their voice and be comfortable, because it's a lifelong skill. And I think I have always been very comfortable in any setting. And that is thanks to my upbringing in Washington, D.C. And in my school. I went to school with kids of diplomats, kids of famous journalists, people whose dads were Pentagon generals. And so you just learned that they're like anyone else. And I think that is such a critical life skill, the ability to talk to anyone. But then we go down to South Georgia, and half my family is, you know, we're just, you know, they live on farms, and I have family in trailer parks and all walks of life. And so just being equally comfortable no matter where you are and relating to people regardless of background.
It's
so important.
Connection with people, and it's not about the corporation; it's the people, it's the relationships.
It's about, are they a good person? You know, and I've learned there's a lot of people who run companies that are total jerks, and then there's also people who are just really warm and caring, and you're so excited to see them do well. And that's what I look for in any business relationship: who I source my product from, who we sell our product to. I want to really know, who are we working with, because that matters. It's not just transactional for me. It's relationship.
And that's why we're so honored you're on the show, because you know, we're watching your journey and rooting for you. And
thank you.
Thank you. So,
and by the way, this is my cat in the background.
I just saw it. I was going to be
welcome to my house.
My dog.
I may very well have one or other of two of my 3 boys, because they're here. One's home sick, and the other one is the COVID school thing. So, FYI, we may have that too. Stephanie, I want to hear. I'm hearing a little bit of this through what you're saying, but I'd like you to center on what you're passionate about, what drives you, what gets you up in the morning. I've heard connection. And I've heard a number of things about, you know, exercising your influence and understanding people. You tell me, in your words, what gets you up in the morning? What are you super passionate about?
Building back the legacy of my grandfather. That excites me. And I think it's part of this, like I said earlier, this broader story of so many amazing brands lost their magic along the way. Companies that have been around for 80, 100 years, like Stuckey's. I joke we're an 80-plus-year-old startup, because we've been around a long time, but we've had our ups and downs. And I just think the greatest story is a comeback story. And the ability to take something that once was really amazing and then fell on hard times and had incredible challenges, and to get that back
Mm-hmm.
and have a chance to revive it, but also rejuvenate it. Like, I don't want to just go back to what Stuckey's was in the 1960s or 70s, because
Right.
times have changed.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean we can't have a nod to our past and
Right.
respect it. And there are certainly elements of nostalgia that are going to be infused throughout whatever we do. It's a critical part of our brand, and we'd be crazy to deny it. But we also are going to be moving forward in a fresh way. But that comeback story, to me, is just so exciting. And then the other thing is just the family brands. I don't know any other family brand that fell out of family hands, became owned by a big corporation,
either.
lost the magic, and then the family got it back.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
just doesn't happen.
It's powerful.
happen.
No,
It doesn't happen. And so I think that's why people, I hope, are rooting for me. It's not me. It's this comeback. It's
Right.
this idea of, yeah, we want
It's
the
a we.
underdog to do it. Yeah, it's about we. And I can't do it without a lot of teamwork and a lot of support.
What's really interesting, though, is that you have the history, all those photographs,
Yes.
all those pieces of the puzzle. If you didn't have that, you wouldn't be able to tell that story in quite the same way. So I love that you've excavated all that
Yeah.
history in those pictures. There's so many people in those pictures who really
Yes.
make who it is.
And it's the stories.
Person. Yeah, it was tons of people that did that.
I mean, in the end, it's all storytelling. I think
Yeah.
that's what marketing is storytelling. And
Yes, it is.
I think sometimes that phrase gets thrown out a lot, and people just say, oh, well, here's the story of, the iPhone. But to me, it's the people. And
Story. Yeah.
I am going through my grandfather's archives that people have not looked at in 80 years. Like I would say 80, since 1960s. So
Right.
a long time.
Yes.
And I'm seeing amazing stories of people. And then people are writing me and sharing with me their stories.
Mhm.
And
It's fabulous.
it's incredible.
Well, whenever I shared that you were coming on as a guest, people would launch into their stories about, and I was like, well, great. It's great that you have that the hearts and minds of so many other people. So I have a really important question for you. I really feel like we don't get there alone, and you even said that.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, who inspired you? Who was your mentor? Who just kind of gave you that I want to be like that person? Is there anybody in your history?
There are a lot, and I think it's really important to learn lessons from so many different people along the way. So there are people who have been critical in my career journey, but I also am constantly learning. And I read a great quote the other day that says, don't be a know-it-all, be a learn-it-all. And I love that. Like, you are constantly learning. And I'll give you an example. I love to road trip. That's critical to our brand. And I like to say,
That's a big one.
we're on a mission to make road trips fun again, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I'm living it. And I have been taking road trips, and I was road tripping a couple weeks ago. And my friend and I pulled over in Midland, Texas at this barbecue joint. And it was the best barbecue joint. I'm vegetarian, and it was they had vegetarian options. It was amazing.
Yeah.
And the spices were incredible. And the owner came out, and we started talking, and I said, I love this spice. And he said, I call it my magic soul dust. And I was like, oh my gosh,
Killer.
magic soul
Killer.
dust. And he started telling me about, of course, he wasn't giving away secrets, but he was telling me his process and how he cooks his, and I was learning so much at that moment. And I took his card, and I actually just got off the phone with him. We are now talking with him. Knock on wood. I want him to try to put those spices on our pecans.
Woo!
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. And then
that
we'd have a
sounds
new
great.
flavor. And of course, we'd work out a licensing deal with him or revenue share. I mean, we're going to make it where it's a win-win for us. I want to elevate his brand.
Yeah.
And he's got a cool story, and he's been in business for 30 years, and he has a food truck, and he's just entrepreneur. He's a small business
making
owner,
it
and his
happen.
wife and his daughter
Yeah.
work in the shop and work in the restaurant. And how many vegan barbecue restaurants are there in Texas?
I know. That's
Or anywhere.
Yeah, so that's just one of many people. But yeah, of course, certainly my parents, everyone says that, or not everyone, but a lot of people say that, and with good reason. Like
right.
my parents are still, thankfully, still alive and are incredible mentors, trusted advisors. My siblings, I turn to them all the time. I have 2 brothers who are artists, and I turn to them for advice on marketing. And when I was in the Georgia legislature, I had a colleague who I started out working for, and then I ended up running for the legislature and serving with her, Mary Margaret Oliver, who taught me a lot about being tough in a political world and how you go about collaborating and consensus building and compromising, which you absolutely have to do if you want to be successful in politics, even though I know sometimes it seems like people don't collaborate. There's a lot that goes on.
Right.
So I've had a lot of advisors along the way.
Well, I love the idea that just when you're not even expecting it, people can imprint on you and inspire you if you're looking and if you're open to it.
Absolutely.
Right?
And they
So,
don't have to be older than you. They don't have to be in a position of authority. I think that's one of the key things is just be very open-minded that you can learn from almost anyone. And sometimes you can learn what not to do. And those lessons can be as valuable.
Right. Yep. So, wow, that's just amazing. Thank you for sharing that.
That's exciting. I need to hit the road.
Yes. Well, and what I recommend is I don't want to go to just the typical places. I want to go to, okay, here's an example. I was in Meridian, Mississippi, and I visited an old motel that was frankly in terrible shape. It's run down. It's a haven for prostitution and drugs, unfortunately now. But when it was built, it was a classic example of mid-century modern architecture, and it was designed by a famous architect.
Wow.
And I took photos of it, and I posted the then and now story, and I posted the story of the architect, and I got amazing feedback. And then people posted, oh, if you're interested in mid-century modern architecture in Meridian, here's some other places you should visit next time you go through. And by the way, here's some other places that this architect has designed. So a good story to me is one that is not just you telling it, but other people giving you their feedback. Another great road trip place that I went to was in Shreveport, Louisiana.
Oh, okay.
There was Southern-made donuts, and if you drive by, it just looks like kind of a donut shop that's seen better times, but it's still got this cool neon sign and this Art Deco look to it. Well, it turns out the only commercial Elvis ever made was for Southern-made donuts. So that little donut shop has such a cool history.
Yeah.
See, we don't know these stories. We have to excavate them, right?
And you know how much money he got or how he was paid for that one commercial?
Donuts.
He got a box of hot glazed donuts.
That's hilarious.
That sounds
great.
That sounds great.
Perfect. Stephanie, we are a show that is promoting the stories of women in influence, and often one of the things that we talk about are challenges that women particularly face rising into influence, holding power, holding your place, knowing what you have to bring. Can you speak to that? Are there things that you've faced? Are there challenges? And this can be 2-part. You can talk about things that you've experienced, but also your broader understanding of what you think women face and have to overcome.
I think the biggest challenge has been access to capital. And the statistics play that out, that female-led businesses consistently, I think what I read recently was only 2% of venture capital dollars go to female-led businesses.
Right.
Wow.
And it's just getting that access to capital. But it's not just women. I think it's minority-owned businesses, absolutely, African American and other minority businesses. It's hard to get capital. And I just think that's the biggest challenge. And we're constantly dealing with it. I've been very fortunate in that I'm later in life getting into the business world. So I have a lifetime of good credit that I've built up that really helped me. But when we bought the manufacturing facility, I literally had to put my life as collateral. The bank made me take out a life insurance policy with them as the beneficiary. Yeah.
Wow.
And that's what good credit, that's a SBA loan, which these are great loan products if you can get them. But all of these wonderful programs that they talk about, these government programs for minority-owned businesses or women-led businesses, yes, they're out there. They're really hard to qualify for. And the process, if I didn't have a law degree, sometimes I wonder if I could have gone through it. Plus, we had to hire someone. We had to hire someone who was a SBA loan processor. That's what he did.
Interesting.
And we had to pay him. Yeah, I mean, it was well worth it, but
sure, but
access to capital.
Right.
Wow. It's insightful.
So I have a question for you about that, because I know that you've gone through some really big career changes and decisions. And I'm wondering, if you looked at your younger self and you look at who you are now, how have you learned to manage conflict? Because that's one of the biggest things that I think, not just women, everybody struggles in conflict in terms of their style and how they show up. And sometimes women just don't have the same leeway to be as creative in their conflict as men do. And so I'm kind of interested in hearing how your conflict style has changed over time, or how you manage resistance or challenges.
Yeah. Well, what I would say to my younger self is relax. You'll get through it. Take a deep breath. I think too often we get so caught up in the moment and we just think everything's, I mean, my younger self would just, everything could be a crisis. And I've got a teenage daughter and it's just one drama after another. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, please, it's a text chain that went bad. Calm down. But I'm also sympathetic. She's a teenager. That's hard. But just relax. Like, it will be okay. So that's step number one. Take a deep breath, go for a walk, get a glass of wine in the evening and relax. Just one glass, don't overdo it. But you know, just relax. It's not as bad as you think. Two, I like to diffuse conflict with humor. I think that is such a great way to go about it. Three, empathize. Put yourself in the other person's shoes. Try to understand why they're reacting the way they're reacting. And a lot of the times when people are behaving badly, it's because of other factors that aren't necessarily related to the main issue at hand. You know, if I have a coworker who just gets really upset about a change I want with the website, for example, and it's minor and I don't understand why he's having that reaction, I might step back and think, okay, well, what's bigger picture going on? We are going through a lot of change. How are we most effectively managing the changes in our company to make sure that everybody feels like they still have worth? Usually just letting people know you appreciate them and you value their opinion and you listen to them makes a huge difference. And that was and I'll give you one specific example. When I was in the legislature, my first session, I introduced like 100 bills or some insane amount. And I actually passed a lot. It was a bit of a shotgun approach, but then I got more strategic. And I had this one bill that I was really focused on, and it was an alcohol bill. It was to enable higher alcohol beer to be sold in Georgia, which was a huge effort. It took me 6 years to pass it. First time I got it on the House floor, it was a colossal defeat. I mean, I went down in flames. I didn't handle it well in the well when I was dealing with questions. And then I got the Mothers Against Drunk Driving opposed it. And then the Christian Coalition opposed me. And then liquor dealerships opposed me because they saw it as competition with the beer. I mean, and then the big beer distributors opposed it because most of these were smaller beer companies getting craft breweries, getting in there. I mean, it was just like I had everyone almost against me. And then like a few people who home brewed beer in their basements wearing Birkenstocks were on my side, you know, like I was totally against the odds and I was awful. And I went in the bathroom and started crying. And that's when I had one of my mentors come in and say, buck up, sweet pea, dry your eyes, get back out there, fight another day. And I came back with that bill again a year later. And you know what I did? Like a week before I was supposed to present the bill in the legislature, I went to my biggest opponent and I sat down with them and I said, explain to me your opposition. Let me understand where you're coming from.
Yeah.
We spent like 2 hours going almost line by line, and I went through every argument. Now, I didn't win their vote, but what I did was I understood their objections. And so that time when I got in the well and people started bombarding me with questions, I was like,
to it.
I'm
Yeah.
ready for this.
Right.
I am ready. I understand why they're thinking the way they're thinking.
Right.
And I was able to persuade enough votes to get it through that time.
Well, you know, that's another example of your open-mindedness, because you really can't know you can't perspective take if you're not open to what they have to say. So you can listen all you want, but if it's not listening to understand and to have the other perspective, you don't get anywhere. It's sort of that just helped you hone your argument a little bit better about what you wanted to have happen. And I just think that people need to feel understood.
Absolutely. And don't take things as personal. Like that bill died not because of me. That bill died because it wasn't ready and the objections hadn't been addressed. Now, part of that was like, I needed to be better prepared, but like, don't internalize too much when you have conflict. Recognize that there are a lot of factors at play and just use it as a learning opportunity. Everything's a learning opportunity.
Right. Exactly.
And then just laugh. Just be able to laugh, be able to find humor.
It's a way of regulating yourself too. When you can find humor in it, then you can kind of settle yourself down, right?
And others too. I mean, nothing will diffuse a tense situation like just, saying, and usually like self-depreciating humor is what I find works best. Like, obviously you have to be careful about the kind of humor you use. Don't use anything that could be offensive to people. But if you do something that's self-depreciating, it works almost every time. Just be vulnerable, make fun of yourself, just be like, I blew that one, just.
What did you learn that? Who did you learn that from? That humor piece, being able to diffuse the conflict with the humor.
Honestly, that's like mostly professional comedians. I love comedians. I watch and read, like I'm reading Mindy Kaling's book right now. Is Everybody Having Fun Without Me? Or David Sedaris. I like really smart comedians. And both of them are just cerebral humor. I love Trevor Noah. Like the way he presents really hard issues in a way that makes people laugh. Like that is such a talent. Trevor Noah is one of my favorites. And, whether you believe, he definitely has a political viewpoint. So I'm not trying to inject a political viewpoint here, but I think what he does that's admirable is that he addresses really tough topics like racism in a way that is relatable and doesn't that people connect with him.
Helps people let their guards down.
So I admire professionals and TED Talks. I mean, you think about people who get on the stage for a TED Talk are the best in their field. And then they prepare like crazy. So you can learn so much from TED Talks. These are like the best of the best who've prepared. And so I watch a lot of TED Talks.
I do too. I really enjoy them. And I also like them that they're succinct and to the point. Like it forces people to get their point across in 20 minutes or less, right? Love that.
Absolutely. Watch the TED Talks on public speaking. They're amazing. And they said actually the most effective public speakers speak with their bodies, speak with their hands.
It makes it so hard right now.
Which is hard to do right now. So, all right, I'm trying to be more. But when you think about it, it's how you make people feel, right? You've heard that. You've heard that saying, but it's true. It's people don't remember what you say. They remember how you say it. And they remember how you made them feel, your enthusiasm, your passion. Is it real? Is it authentic? That's what matters.
It's exactly what matters.
Stephanie, how have you changed the most, would you say, since you're, out of high school, college age, just getting into your profession? How would you say you've changed most?
I think I'm just a lot more comfortable in myself and willing to be vulnerable, willing to fail. I went to a very high achieving private school for girls in Washington, D.C., and it was so cutthroat competitive. Even though I think women can be very supportive of one another, they can also be very competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And I have lifelong friends from going to school there, but it was competitive. And so being willing to say, oh gosh, I'm not good at that. And being vulnerable and being willing to put yourself out there and dusting yourself off if you fail. That's come with getting older and just having those experiences and knowing like I've had some of the absolute worst things happen and gotten past them. I mean, I was a trial attorney and I remember my first trial. I was so terrified. I honestly didn't think I could stand up when I had to, when the judge said, get ready, approach the jury, is defense ready to present their case? I'm like, yes, but I got through it. Right. And my client did get convicted, but it was on a lesser charge. So it was a win because it was armed robbery. It was a very tough case. I remember that case to this day, but you get through it and you prepare.
Yeah.
I was so over prepared, but it was good. Like you want to be really prepared.
You learn to rely on that.
Yeah.
Well, I know that this is a big life transition for you to, number one, go into business, but number two, the pandemic, everything that happens. I'm wondering if you could share with our listeners what you do to build your resilience. And is there any hobby that you have? Is there any practice that you have, a ritual that you have that builds your resilience and helps you get through the day every day?
Yes, I'm a big believer in exercise, and it's for your mind and body. And so I was having a hard time initially with COVID because I had routines in place like most of us do. I dance. So what's that?
That's a one I haven't heard before.
Okay. Ding, ding, ding. Okay. Hopefully, I don't know. Does somebody win a prize? Did an angel get her wings or something? So I couldn't take my dance classes anymore. And so, I had to figure out a new routine, and my dance classes were at a set time and I'd scheduled them, and then I wasn't doing that anymore. And when my clothes started not fitting as well as when I had a bit of a wake up call. And so I started scheduling, like actually put on your calendar, I am working out at this time. And so that got me into every single day I have calendared some time to do a workout. And so that has just helped me so much. The other thing is sleep cannot be valued high enough. It is so important to get 7 to 8 hours sleep a night. I mean, it affects everything. It affects your mental acuity. It affects your well-being. It affects your outlook on life. So I am in bed on time. I cut usually like by 10 o'clock every night, if not earlier. And then I put the phone away and I read a book.
What a
What are you
novel
reading?
idea.
What are you reading right now?
I'm reading 2 books. I'm always reading. Well, actually, usually I have 3 books going at any given time. I have a nonfiction, and then I have a fiction, and then I have audiobooks. And my audiobook is Shoe Dog by Phil Knight. It's the Nike story. And then I've got the Mindy Kaling book, which actually is nonfiction, but it's kind of fun and light. So it's kind of my fiction piece right now. And then I'm reading the history of the pecan, America's favorite nut. And the author's name is James McWilliams. And it's very historical. It's good, but I mean, I think you almost have to be into pecans to want to read it, but it's fascinating. I'm reading about grafting trees right now.
That's really interesting.
Well,
I need to know that.
I want to ask you, I also want you to share, in our intro, you told me about all the health benefits of the pecan.
Yes.
And I think that people would want to hear that because I have an almond cow. I make my own nut milk, and I use pecans from Georgia. And so, tell us all the benefits of the pecans, because I don't think everybody knows that.
Educate us.
Yeah, there are studies that show the pecan is the healthiest nut. And there are other studies that show it's among the top 5. So consistently, it's in the top 5. It's full of antioxidants. It's full of the good kinds of fats. And there's lots of data showing it has anti-aging, anti-cancer, benefits for promoting growth for hair and collagen, skin renewal. I personally eat a handful every single day, and I am happy just to have them raw, but I also throw them in smoothies, salads. I stir fry them. I put them in veggies. When I stir fry, I put them in oatmeal. They're amazing in granola. And my business partner told me this one, which is so easy. You just get like a tablespoon of butter, and I use vegan alternative, which is delicious too. And you just melt the butter, and then you in a iron skillet, and then you pan fry. Wow. And then put a little bit of sea salt. It's incredible. It is really the best tasting snack ever. And if you use some sort of butter alternative, it's really super healthy too. It's
going to be great with soul dust.
Yeah. Yes. I know. I can't wait. I mean, I was talking to Todd today. Yeah. Todd's like now my friend. I've talked to him 3 times in the past couple of days. Yeah. And I just love the idea of partnering with other small businesses and collaborating and lifting each other up.
That sounds wonderful.
I will add on the pecan, it is uniquely America's nut. It is the only snack nut native to our country. So from a sustainability perspective, so like the almond, the cashew, pistachio, they're not native. And the peanut is a legume. It is not a nut, so it doesn't count.
What? I had no idea.
Yeah. Brazil nut, I mean, all the other nuts, macadamia, they are not native to our country. And so snack nut. So I always get people going, what about the hazelnut? When's the last time you snacked on a hazelnut? Or a black walnut, which is really bitter. Yeah. So those are the other 2 nuts that are kind of in contention.
The Oregonians are going to come after you.
I know, right? And they do. My friends from Oregon are like, quit bashing our nut. And Georgia, and Georgia, the filbert, right?
Right.
Georgia is the #1 pecan producing state and has been since the 1950s. We did have a little blip where we fell in rank because of Hurricane Michael, but we're back. And so that is a key part of bringing Stuckey's back is we bought this pecan processing and candy plant, and we are really promoting the heck out of America's native nut. And we're promoting it worldwide. We've sold 3 container loads to the Taiwanese. And so Asian countries love pecans. It is considered a delicacy, and we love that they love them. And my business partner's been on 3 trade missions to the Far East.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's something that I don't think people realize as much, that there is an incredible international trade opportunity with our products.
So Stephanie, let's just talk about your t-shirt then.
Yeah. So it says, eat here and get gas. So this gets to our marketing. So how I'm bringing Stuckey's back is through the sale of our product right now. It's the stores are very capital intensive and management intensive. So capital intensive from a human and monetary standpoint. So we've got to sequence how we build this company back, and where our focus is right now is what's driving 80% of our revenue, and that's sale of product. The sale of our branded food product. And by the way, that pecan log roll you've got is good, but it's about to be even better.
I know. I'm waiting for the one.
We'll be rolling out. So we're waiting for the packaging, but we should be rolling literally the new line out of Praline Divinity, Gophers, milk chocolate Gophers, and then several sizes of the pecan log rolls, plus 5 flavors of pecans. All that will be ready in May with our new packaging.
Yay!
So it's going to be delicious. And then we're also doing branded products. So t-shirts, mugs, caps, hoodies, and we're putting together more. Shot glasses will be out soon, and really cute pillows, travel pillows.
Those are fun.
They're so cute. Yeah. So this was a comeback. So we had these shirts in the 1970s, and they were very popular. And several people posted them on Facebook and said, "Can you bring these back?" And so I did a posting on LinkedIn and Facebook and said, hey, if I order these, are people going to buy them? And the response was very positive. So I ordered 288. And that was an initial order. We sold out almost immediately. We re-upped the order, and we're almost out of order number 2. So we'll be re-upping again.
That's awesome.
And then, so here, can I do a test market for
Yes,
comments? So
go for it.
someone just sent this to me. So this was not initiated by us, but it says, all right, can you see it?
I'm in love with these nuts.
These nuts. So our brand, when we talked about marketing, it's
hilarious.
important.
It's brilliant.
I know.
It's hilarious.
So it's funny, but I think it's important to not only have a good sense of what your brand is, but to actually write it down. So yes, we have brand guidelines. We have a written marketing plan, and it's not just something that I put down and don't pay attention to. Like I dust it off. Well, not dust. It doesn't gather dust. I look at it all the time. And we even have a cool visual. It's a diamond with facets. And it shows like these, the top of the diamond is road trips. Stuckey's, we make road trips fun. But then under it are all the facets, and it's family friendly. It's nostalgia. It's dependable. And so we have to look at when we're doing things, especially merchandise, like, is it brand forward? Does it check these boxes? Yeah. And so this does not check the family friendly box.
Not so much.
As much as I like it, like D's nuts is kind of like referring to male testicles is not family friendly. So I've thought about D's pecans. I heart D's pecans. So curious what people think.
Somebody's calling in right now.
Yeah. So if you want to buy the shirt, great, but it's not just that. It's like, it's not just doing what's popular or what will sell, although that's definitely something we want. We want it to be brand forward. We want to have a sense of who we are and stick to it.
There we got her back. So Stephanie, before we let you go, because you've got about 1,000 things going on, you just bought a manufacturing facility. And I know you've got a lot going on right there. We want to ask you a final couple questions though. And the one that Janine lets me ask, because it's probably my favorite question, is what are you most hopeful about with regard to women in positions of influence and power?
I think what really gives me hope is that women, by and large, are consensus builders, and we care about relationships. And I would like to think that more women in power means that there's going to be more problem solving and less conflict, that people will start learning to collaborate. And that's something I saw in the legislature. I saw that the female legislators, we had a women's legislative caucus, and I was one of the chairs of that for one term. It was such a great experience because by our rules, we had to have bipartisan chairs. So the Republican women and the Democratic women worked together, and we only worked on issues that we all agreed on. So there were certain issues like abortion we didn't touch. Right. That's not to say those issues didn't matter, but we were about finding common ground.
Right.
And then I also used to be a president of my local League of Women Voters, and they had such a great model of everything was consensus driven. And so I have learned my leadership style from largely women-based organizations that focused on consensus and collaborating and lifting each other up. And so I want to see that with women leaders, and not, we're not competitive. I don't want, I've been around a lot of competitive women, and I can deal with it. Believe me, I won't back down, but that doesn't mean I'm going to be like head on confrontational. I think there's opportunities with women in leadership to see more results driven problem solving approaches to the tough issues that we face.
Love it.
Love it.
Awesome.
Thank you so much for being with us. It has been our pleasure. I love your humor, your love of learning, everything. You are who you say you are in those LinkedIn posts. And so it's been absolutely delightful. And it means a lot to us that you're here.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I like to joke. People are like, they're so authentic. I'm like, yeah, it's because that's me. I don't have a marketing person. That is me. Just me.
Well, we love Stuckey's, and
thank you.
Go Stuckey's, and we're excited
we'll be
to see where
rooting
this is
for you.
go. Yeah.
We're gonna
Thank
be
you.
rooting
And
for
I
you.
invite people to listen.
Yep.
Put
We
comments
will.
below. I will definitely read and respond.
Yeah, we'll get
Yes.
those to you.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have an awesome day.
Okay.
You too,
We'll see
Stephanie.
you. Take care.
Talk to
Bye-bye.
you soon. Oh, my goodness.
Wasn't that incredible?
She's a dynamo.
Oh, she has so many great strengths. I mean, just
Yeah.
brings a lot to the table. It was really
Yeah.
delightful.
Yeah,
I
she's
really
fun.
enjoyed that. So who do we have next, Joshua?
We have Hara Allison, and she will be next Monday. She is a local, I shouldn't say local as much, she's Pacific Northwest photographer, and does very powerful work around identity, women's identity, and understanding of perspective. So she has an amazing story. It's going to be a lot of fun, and we're going to learn a lot. So
I'm excited. I'm excited to look through that lens of how she viewed the world, because she definitely has a unique perspective to share with us. So I'm looking forward to that.
Yeah.
So I'm really hoping that people will go to the podcast, because we just dropped Rachel Dexheimer, and she was incredible. What an incredible interview. That was amazing. Yeah. And so I'm hoping that people will go to the podcast, blueberry.net, BLUBRRY.net, and Taking Her Lead. Really great episode. And then we'll be back next week with Hara. And we're still hoping that maybe Stephanie will do a road trip in Mississippi, and we can get somebody
from Mississippi to
download us. Yes.
That would be big.
And the Dakotas. So, So until next week, we
do just want to note that we are, of course, on LinkedIn. And so listeners, when you see an episode is coming out, a show like this, one of the live streams, or one of our audio onlys, which we're still kicking out, because we offer that flexibility to our guests, what they're more comfortable with. Post that to your timeline on LinkedIn. Ask your connections to share it. We want to get the word out. It's simple multiplication. And so far, it's working really well. We are in, Janine, how many countries now?
49. Yes, 49. We're so close. And we're not in every state yet either.
We're not in every state. So.
And I wanted to say thank you for all the comments in the chat. It's really going to be our pleasure to read them. I'm trying to read them and listen.
It's hard to read and talk.
But I'm really excited that people were engaged, because she was an incredible guest for us.
Yeah, she was fabulous. All right. Well, we will be seeing all of you, hopefully, and more. Tell your friends next Monday. And also look for an audio only coming out later this week.
Yep. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
All right. Bye-bye.